Good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, Deborah Leanne.
So, are we ready to talk about limitations today?
Absolutely. Today we're here to talk about Gene Key 60, and we're discussing Gene Keys written by Richard Rudd. And this 60th Gene Key is all about the cracking of the vessel. And in its shadow, it's all about limitation. And out of limitation, this beautiful gift of realism is born. And that is the gift state. And then the acidic state is the higher state, and that is all about justice. So we're moving from limitation to realism to justice.
Yeah. I uh I found that listening to this one didn't crack through the limitations of my mind. So I needed to read it a little bit more and highlight it in bright, vibrant pink so that I could capture some of the essence of it in a different way. So many of these things kind of like land, and I can put relationships together in my brain so that it makes sense. But this one, it just kept going right beyond my maybe the willingness to know it.
It's certainly not easy to penetrate, because
He says that.
when we're in the limitation stage, it's like,
right. And our minds are let's talk about limits. I mean, there's so many ways that we're limited. We don't like to feel like we're limited. I think in very many spiritual, the new spiritual traditions or thought processes, it's very much like we're unlimited, and that is true. But in this life, in this human body, there are limitations, and I feel like once I wake up and accept that, that's where it opens it up to be less limited, right? I think
because you're accepting it, and you're like,
exactly.
okay, yes, we do have self-imposed limitations. There's
And
a
we
lot.
have outside, this body is not designed to go out there in 0-degree weather and hang out without a lot of protective gear. I mean, it's just not. That is a limitation. This human body, most beings are not like really well equipped to go hang out outside. The birds were, though. I noticed the birds at the bird feeder, they didn't seem to stop eating when it was -10.
Well, and I want to even challenge that limitation, because I've seen lots of people who are breaking that barrier of their own limitations, especially when you think about how many people do polar plunges. It's pretty miraculous about where our mind goes and what we think is limiting, and then where we actually go, because we don't like getting out of our comfort zone.
Okay, well, just look and see what the
Okay.
science says, which of course science is limiting, on being outside without gloves, for example, what the air can do to your fingers within 5 minutes.
No, I mean,
that's what I'm talking about, is it's not like this body wasn't designed to live in that kind of situation without being covered, without being protected. So we have physical limitations, we have mental limitations. I think we impose, with our own fear-based stuff, we impose emotional limitations. No, I don't want to love you, or I won't let you love me.
right.
So we have
Too painful.
Yeah,
Don't want to feel
I
that
don't
much.
want to go there. So
No, that's okay. That's all right.
thanks
I'm
very
good.
much, but no thanks. It might even be good for me, but no.
No, well,
Sorry, those are some inside jokes. And just in case you all know, when Suzanne and I lived together at some point, what, 5-6 years ago now, we were both single, very single, and exploring who we were in terms of lovable beings. And I feel like that time was such a healing time for us both, that
Mhm.
we both were partnered up, what, at the end of that 3 years time.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that was
Because
pretty interesting how we shifted into, oh, I'm lovable. I love me. And then attracted the person. So we kind of broke through some of our own self imposed emotional limitations.
well, yeah, because especially when you might be in your shiznit and am I still lovable even when I'm up in my stuff?
Oh, and that was really good for me to know that I could be in my absolute worst nastiness. And you were like, I still love you. I thought,
Yeah.
wow, she saw me at my really ugly place. So, anyway, the two boats. So, I want to chat a little bit about limitation and how do we get into the space of the gift of the limitation? I mean, how can that be transcended or opened into a space where we can be on the realism side? And I don't know if I can we talk about realism versus limitation, because the definition of the words here sometimes get in the way of getting the full concept.
Yeah, I found that too. When I think of realism, I think of just matter of fact. Um, what is interesting is Richard calls it the common sense of magic.
I love that.
That's the realism in true reality. And what he jokes about it, from what I remember, is that it's any type of structure, because you're creating a structure of belief or whatever, but you don't take it so seriously and hold on to it. It's not rigid, it's fluid. And so even he says, as I was creating the gene keys, um, I don't want people to latch on to a particular sphere or like, this is who I am. And like,
Based on my birth time and
right. And
yeah.
like focus on that because that's not the point. The point is allowing it to work through us and
He
just
said
hold
it was
on
a
to it.
vehicle to
Right.
take all of that was swimming in him, all of that wisdom that he didn't know how to share with the world. And that's how the book came into play. That's how the teachings
Right.
came into play. So this is fascinating to me because this brings about the importance of structure,
Mm-hmm.
which to me have I've been kind of rebel when it comes to structure. Like, how can I shift the paradigm? How can I break down the structures and be? And I thought, this is exactly what I'm struggling with my new program, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have this information, my colleague and I have this stuff that we want to share with the world. And you know where I'm struggling? I have been working on the registration page, for 2 months. Now, this is fascinating to me because it is basically writing a page that I link to on the information thing and they can pay. And I'm like, what? But that makes it real.
Ah, so you're creating, well, think about it this way, like you're taking an idea and you're pulling it into form. And that is like, okay, it's it's happening. It's this, it's
Yeah.
real. The magic is happening. But you know what? You don't need to force it. That's not a force thing. It should be like,
No, but I'm looking at where my limitations, my fear of if I make this real, this is a dream or like I feel like I'm birthing a brand new something into the world, and it feels very tender and very close to my heart. And I also feel like if I put it out there, then I'm giving you an inside invitation
oh,
to come into to my inner landscape. So there's something about it feels very vulnerable.
it's
And
scary. Yeah.
it is scary. So what I'm wanting to just show or point out is that I love and I remember years ago, I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert in her book about creativity, that she talks about having structure for the creative, that you safeguard time every day to
Mhm.
play in that creative playland, to do your writing, your singing, your whatever it is that you're bringing, your creative expression. And I remember thinking structure and creativity they don't feel like they fit, you know?
Well, Richard says the only thing needed for magic to occur is some form of structure and an open mind.
So see, to me, those felt like opposite ends of the world,
Right.
like your logical brain and then your open, playful brain. So
It's weaving.
I need to connect them in a new way to show, the infinity loop about how this feeds this, which feeds this. So thank you for bringing that forth, because that was one of the things that I thought was so, so, so important.
Well, and he says that the 60th gift requires deep acceptance of the uncertainty and unpredictability of the rhythms of life.
Yeah.
And so, being patient as you go spelunking in a new way and recognizing we don't have to limit ourselves. And I just got this image of a horse with a tether to a plastic chair. Like, how many times in our own mind we like stop ourselves and we tether ourselves to a belief or an idea that is not useful, and it really doesn't have a lot of strength to it. It's just a matter of seeing it for what it truly is and opening ourselves up a little wider.
Yeah. Like the elephant that's been taught, it has that rope around its foot, but it's not even tied to anything. And it still feels like I can't go anywhere because that's what it was taught. That's what it learned.
Right.
I love that. And the thing that is playful for me around that is, can I open to allow what he talks about in the limitation spaces? We talk about manifesting. Like I want that. I can dream this. I have this thing I want to bring into the world. And then we give up because we don't allow the time for it to gestate. The time for, the universe is doing it.
Right.
It's not maybe in the time frame that we had expected. So can we expand that time to allow it to be? So that time is another, that's a playful thing, because that feels, time and language he talks about are very limiting. So how do we play with the realism of time and the realism of language?
Yeah. I also remember something, and I jotted a note about it being common sense and building structures that can adapt with change. So it's not being, like it's.
I think COVID taught us that. What a beautiful expression of, oh yeah, guess what? You don't get to go to work anymore in person. And now they're trying to figure out, so how do we do this hybrid work thing? How do we engage our people if they're all working in their houses? How do we, so it's a whole new paradigm shift that we're still trying to and we just thought that was the way it always had to be. 5 years ago, did you ever think you could have a job in an office and that you would do that at home? A lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
So, and school, that was a whole nother thing too, is how do we teach our children that way?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so we're learning that whatever systems are in place, whatever structures in place, can also die, come to an end.
Yeah.
Like financial structures, we think is just the way it is. The economy of the world is just the way it is. It's not going to be like this forever.
No.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be scary. It's just a matter of, okay, right. Well, is this really effective for all of us? Is this the best use of time, energy?
And this is example of the traditionalist thinking, right? It's the way we've always done it. So, it's got to work. And I'm like, even democracy, we're looking at where where's the growing pains of who we are now in this country of ours, you know? So I'm and I've been saying for a long time that things need to break down so they can change. But I mean, do they need to completely break down? Maybe before we institute something new. So this
I
brings me to I want to get into the spiritual piece because this is
well,
about the apocalypse.
no, well, I will say what I love, I do remember Richard talking about the rootstock, right? So we keep the stuff that is solid, great foundation, and then we graft something brand new onto it. I mean, you're seeing all different kinds of ways in which we adapt.
Yeah.
So,
Technology is such a great one for that, you know? And um the if you look at where the cell phone has gone, I'm reading a book that's about 25 years ago old, and how they didn't even have they had car phones, but nobody else had I mean, it was just so how their life was and how you had to look things up on a map versus just GPSing. I'm like,
yellow pages.
yeah, I remember those maps, those street guides I used to keep in my car so I could find my way around when my sales rolled. So anyway, I'm laughing because those our children, the young people, will never know that. Um, so as we move and shift and do the grafting, hopefully, and what the old rootstock that is still viable that we can build upon and put those new innovative ideas on there. Where does that take us? I want to play with this very uh, ethereal term of justice. And that
Mm,
word in itself feels very different from all of the climate justice and
right,
gender
right,
justice, racial
right.
justice.
I like it because it's called the Earthship Merkaba.
Yeah.
And so it goes from a very personal view of how we operate to more of a encompassing universal flow of how we operate as a species.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so what I love, this is a quote, this force about justice, this force may be called God, grace, magic, fate, or even chance, but the fact that it lies beyond our human control. It's bigger than us, right? Justice is a reward. Its freedom flows from it. It's
Yeah.
divine balance. It's all about balance.
And where is it about the each of our cells? I love this idea of we have this thought of the speed of light. I mean, there's a whole scientific explanation of that traveling.
Mhm.
Does that mean that that star that's out there really isn't out there right now? And does that mean that each of the cells in our body that are in the state of matter, which means we can't at this point in time take this body, we can take our consciousness and travel
Right,
into other dimensions. But in our cells, we already have that capability.
right,
There is each of our cells has the light in it that will eventually be the building block of who we are in other dimensions. That part of it was very
there you go.
fascinating to me. I know. And the two things that it's going to be one of the very last cities to dawn. I thought that was fascinating
Mm,
because we need to evolve beyond, and I love this, the limitation of gravity and
yep.
time and gravity. The last sentence in this chapter states, in more advanced forms of life, the mirror of DNA is no longer a binary structure, but a trinary helix. The triple helix unites all beings beyond space and time and frees awareness to travel unimpeded throughout the cosmos. However, the triple helix cannot support a carbon-based life form, aka these monkey suits we're wearing. It requires a far subtler structure or vehicle, the underlying geometry of the universe itself. So, using justice to describe this state of, I guess, universal balance. I mean, I think of justice as, you know, how we always use the scales, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it like totally accepting our essence, our the space beyond us, the acceptance that we are so much more than this gravity-based, time encapsulated body?
Right. I think understanding our true essence.
That's the word I use too. And
Yeah, our true essence. I have written down here, it's all linked to gravity and levity, as you said. Hearts open to our true innocence. And that's what transmutes the global karma on behalf of the whole as we keep our hearts open. And we can go into this. We talked a little bit about sanctity last week, and
yeah, because it's one of the same codon.
related, right?
Mhm.
The
Codon.
ring in the ring of Gaia, and so it's when all polarities are annihilated and we enter into that sanctity of justice, which is I feel like is divinely authorized. It's already it's beyond our comprehension, I think. And you can only reach those states when you absolve,
Both.
release.
I think both.
You release, you
Well, I
don't
mean, it's not a mind
no,
concept. And
no.
that's where we rely on. I feel like when I've been in journey space and I'm in my heart and I am in this like swimming in this universal, there is no time. There is no you and me. We're all in there together. And
Yeah.
there's something so amazing about that experience that I think that's why many of us continue to want to do that deep work, because it's like, I want to revisit that space as much as possible. However, I have the memory and I can drop into that space and go, oh yeah, I am a part of it all. And um, that's what allows me to get out of gravity and time and those limitations.
Mhm.
So I would like to play with, how can we, as human beings, which we know this body is going to die, we know that, but not all of us is going to die. We'll go back and join the, the
The
allness.
collective. Yeah.
But how can we in this life influence justice of the kind that we see, climate justice, racial justice, economic justice, by playing with the acidic state of justice, by practicing in the gift of realism? Can you see a way that we can get to the justice in this plane
Mhm.
by bringing that into our awareness?
I think it's embodying our own awareness. It's because obviously, my whole mantra is it all starts within me. And so as I recognize and realize my gifts, that is what I can contribute to the collective. And as each one of us opens up and really truly sees who we are, that is where all the magic is going to happen. And that why would you want to hurt another?
Who's
Like,
us? I think
who's
that's the
us?
other thing is who's
Exactly.
interconnected. If I realize that that is just another extension of me, that person, that situation, that part of the world, then why would I not want them to have the same beauty in life that I'm experiencing?
Exactly.
Um,
And so it's a self-love, but you have to be able to honor and love yourself to
that you can,
connect, right? To connect to all of life. I was watching a documentary the other day, and it was talking about the fishing industry, and all of a sudden, and I haven't done, not that I'm not avoiding it, but the atrocities in our oceans, and I just wept. I just wept, and I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? I prayed, one, and two, it makes me think about my own habits, my purchasing habits. What am I doing to contribute to the solution?
yeah.
What am I doing? What's my role in that? So it's looking within and practicing,
Yeah. That
practicing those things.
self-compassion so that it can ripple out. I feel that was what my whole training was about yesterday, right? The emotional intelligence of leadership, about when, and I kept saying, when we can accept our own limitations, our own shadows, our own reactive tendencies, and only then can we love them, can we
Right.
love each other in all of our broken frailty, messiness. And oh my gosh, it was so fun to see the light bulbs go off when they're like, oh, and then we can love the earth. So I'm going to put a link in the resources underneath our thing today. I just watched a YouTube movie that was on Pope Francis's call called Laudato Si, which is basically, everything is, one. And he, in his call to love each other and the planet, there's a whole movement now, like, how do we create the change that we need to on this planet so that we do love each other and we do listen to each other and we do what we need to do to be kinder to our planet, to save our planet. And in it, I love this, he has a chief human integral development officer. Now, integral development is the work I do. So I'm like, the Vatican has that? And he had an idea for the Pope. He says, why don't you we need different voices at the table. So they invited somebody to represent the youth, this 10 or 11-year-old girl from India who's been a climate activist since she was little bitty, an indigenous elder, a chief from an Amazonian tribe, and from Brazil, a gentleman who's a climate refugee from Senegal, whose country is rapidly being swept into the sea. So there's less and less work. And so they all go to the cities and then they have to beg because there's no jobs. And, all of the fishermen, speaking of which, they're losing that livelihood, and because the ocean just keeps taking over the land. So a climate refugee. And the fourth was a couple that are both like marine biologists that live in Hawaii. And so they have the science background. And they all came together and they all had to have like interpreters to speak to the Pope. And but what was so beautiful is at the end of their time together, how they all felt each other and they all heard each other, like they're talk about the limitations of language and where they lived and their backgrounds all melted. It was because they all had the same desire to make a difference. So anyway, I just want to put that out there.
Mm.
One of the things I said I would like to do this morning, do we still have time? Can I do the holy incantation of Solace? Because I feel like this is a heavy topic.
Yes. And then I'd like to
I
offer some practices for this week.
absolutely, I would love that. Do you want to do that first and then I close with
Sure.
the incantation?
So I belong to a Gene Keys human design group, and I'm sorry, I can't give credit to where credit's due because I didn't see a name, but I jotted it down. And one of the practices that you might want to do this week is journaling. So in your journal prompt, write down what your main limitations are at this moment, what your beliefs are, what are your main limitations. Write about facts, feelings, and sensations connected to those limitations. Okay. And then I'm offering you a creative contemplation. Look at those limitations from a higher perspective and ask yourself, what are they trying to teach you?
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps how they could become allies with you.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, maybe this would be a great week to systematize. So this is the last gate of Capricorn season, and also the last gate of the what we call the Rav calendar year. So now is a great time to set up systems and structures into your life and business so that you can create for 2024.
Love that.
Or if you're watching this later, whatever the next year is.
Right. And I know that this is still very fluid time because a lot of our culture shows that really the new year is February 2nd, according to our calendar. So we've got this planting of seeds time throughout this whole gorgeous time until Imbolc or Candlemas or whatever you want to call Groundhog Day is another term for February 2nd. And I love this practice. Thank you. Thank you. And this is the same thing with most of our shadows is we tend to push them away. We don't want to own them, but befriending, accepting and saying, I want to work
Allies.
with you. Yeah. What can you
Hi
teach
there.
me? Yes.
I see you.
I love that. Yes. And that's
Whenever
just,
I get into my impatience, I go, oh, thank you for being
I,
a niggler in there.
yeah, I talked a lot about my perfection thing yesterday. It was really good. Because I use it as an example when I'm talking about when we get stuck in this and how do we find the gift of that, you know?
Yeah.
So, thank you. That was beautiful. Do you want to do a card or do you want me just to do the incantation?
Sure.
Or?
Well, are you feeling deck 1, 2, or 3? 3. This is from the Infinite Self Oracle deck written by one of our sisters, Patricia Wald-Hopkins. So it'd be nice to know what card would be useful for us while we are embanking on this time of creating realism in our life. But this is cosmic
banks, and what did they call them? That like the river needs banks to flow, and the there was another one that he used, you know, in terms of those structures.
Top, middle, or bottom?
Top.
Okay. So this is the actual infinite self.
Oh, I love that card.
And this is all about evolutionary growth. So access the transformational power of your infinite self. See it with heightened clarity, your path forward in life. Find the harmony with the earth and in your relationships by activating your infinite self blueprint. Find support from essential oils of cacao, patchouli, rose, blue lotus, and lavender. And isn't it funny? Look at the symbol.
Oh, of course. There we go. I love that. You know, it's funny because I put on both blue tansy and lavender this morning.
Oh, how perfect.
Yes.
So yeah, this is all
for
that.
sharing your light, Trish. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Her cards, her
Beautiful.
artwork and everything is so gorgeous. So we will close with, this is Richard's, one of his many writings and poems and transmissions. And this is called the Holy Incantation of Solace. And I'm going to go through, I'm not going to go through and teach each one. I'm just going to use the mudras throughout the process. So as I say these, phrases. Feel free to say them again to yourself, because there's something about those words coming through your voice box, that helps to activate it, not just within you, but in the ripples all around. May love pour through our soul, weaving us together as one. May light flower in our heart, lending us the grace to transform all fear. May warmth radiate our belly, bringing prosperity to all. May purity shimmer in our bones, filling us with the light of the stars. May kindness resound in our voice, softening the way that lies ahead. May clarity shine through our mind as we lie in the arms of the infinite. May solace abound in our life, touching all who we meet. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect union. And we do this 3 times. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect union. May solace abound in the world, bringing all beings into perfect union. Thank you.